Okay, everybody, good afternoon. Welcome back to another installment of Wednesdays with Wolbes. I'm so honored to be here with all of you this afternoon, every Wednesday at 2 p.m. It really is a great honor to be here and to learn together and to sit beside this lovely woman, my dear wife. And so today the topic is a really special one because it is so fundamental to our existence, to our relationships. So want to just jump right in. Last week we spoke about fear and putting things into perspective. The next step in putting things into perspective is humility, and that's the trait we're going to talk about for the next 60 minutes. And what is humility? So most people say it's someone who's quiet, someone who's sitting in the corner or the back of the synagogue. He's a humble person. That's not the definition our sages give to humility. And can a person be proud and also be humble? Right? I think it's an important question for us to ask, and we'll see that in the process of defining what this trait is, it'll open up the doorway for understanding how exactly we can incorporate this wonderful trait in our lives. So I want us to begin with a story. Okay, there was a great sage on Yom Kippur night, Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz, who was he was in a synagogue and he sees someone crying and crying and he's saying, Afar ani bechayai, I'm like earth in my life, I'm like earth, I'm like nothing, I'm nothing, I'm nothing. Okay? So the rabbi sees his congregant like, with crying, and so he was really impressed. The next day, Yom Kippur day, this individual got the fourth aliyah in synagogue. And he got very upset. He says, I get fourth aliyah? This guy gets the third aliyah? He says, that's terrible. It's just, and he starts yelling and making a whole big deal about that. He got the fourth aliyah and the other individual got the third aliyah. He says, so the rabbi calls him after to the side. He says, weren't you crying yesterday that you're just like earth and you're nothing? And he says, compared to God, but compared to that guy, right? Compared to, so many times the way we interpret this trait of humility is comparing ourselves to other people. And it's to start off, it's a very terrible thing for us to compare ourselves to others. Why? Because if God gave a person 10 ounces of writing skills and another person 2 ounces of writing skills, and they both produce the same amount in their lifetime, who will be held accountable? The person who's giving 10 ounces of skill, right? So to compare and say, hey, I'm average, I'm just like everybody else, well, your skills and abilities aren't the same as everybody else. So for a person to compare himself to other people is futile. It doesn't make any sense because you're not like everyone else. God gave you unique abilities. God gave you unique talents, and therefore it doesn't apply to you what other people do.
I think a mistake a lot of people do. Hi, everyone. I think a mistake that a lot of people have, when you're talking about comparing, with a lot of people compare themselves to other people um, in the physical and the spiritual way. So let's say with physical, they compare themselves. They look up. No, they look down, right? Meaning, let's say, with physical matters, they'll say, "Oh, this person like has so much more than me. They have a nicer house. They have a nicer car. They have a nicer this. They go on better vacations. They this, they that." Right? They look, and they compare what like other people have, like more than them, right? And then in the physical or emotional or like the other on the other side, they'll look down. So they'll say, "Oh, well, I'm a better Jew than this person, or I give more charity than this person, or I'm a better mom than that person," right? A lot of people compare themselves to what's below them for spiritual kind of things, right? And they'll to raise themselves up, to feel good about themselves, to say like, oh, I'm better, like you're saying, like I'm better than that person, right? So a lot of people will say, oh, you know, like that mom is on the phone the whole time at the park, and I'm not like that. I'm so much better. I'm actually pushing my kids on this way, or whatever it is, right? Any dumb little thing that a person does, and like, well, I give more charity than that person, so I know I'm better, or I do this or I do that, instead of looking to what people are doing that's better than you and trying to raise your bar for yourself, and you're in that way, you're just putting yourself up so you feel good about yourself. But then, like with the physical things in the world, you don't appreciate all the things that you do have, all the gifts that you were given, and you just look like who has more, who has better than you. So we kind of need to shift that and look more. Wow, look how great this person is. Look up to people in the physical respect, in the spiritual respect. Sorry, and say, like, that's what I want to strive for. That's what I want to be like. That's what I want. My goal is to do more, give more charity, give more of myself, be a better mother, be a better wife, be a better person, be a better that, right? All those things. And in the physical world, to look down and say, look how blessed I am. Look how wonderful my life is. Look at all these amazing talents. Look at all these amazing gifts. Look at all the amazing things that I do have. And then to go from there and say, I need to value and appreciate what I have. Stop looking at what other people have that's better than you. You have no idea what's better than you. You don't know what other circumstances are around them. So don't judge that.
So our sages teach us, thank you, that sages teach us that man needs to be humble before other people, right? We should be humble before other people. This will help a person accept and learn from others, even someone younger or smaller. So I think as an introduction to this still, we need to understand that every single person is gifted with unbelievable abilities, right? God gave every single human being great talents, great abilities, and we are not allowed to know our talents. We are obligated to know our talents. Many people say, well, if I realize that I'm a good singer, does that make me arrogant? No, right? That's an obligation. You have to know the gifts that you were given because you can be held accountable to fulfill them, right? God gives us these gifts not so that we just hide them, but rather that we utilize them and we maximize them. So it's not are you allowed to, but you're obligated to. So the first step is to really get to identify what those magnificent traits that we possess already, and then we have to remember that they're a gift, right? We have to remember that they're a gift. The minute a person thinks this is just me because I'm so awesome, I'm so great, I'm the greatest, quarterback, I'm the greatest home run hitter, I'm the greatest skier. Once a person starts thinking of themselves as that this is me, and not that it's a gift from Hashem, that's where humility is lost. Humility is knowing what you have, knowing the gifts you have, and also knowing that it is a gift from Hashem. Right? So anything that a person has, even wealth, a person who has great success, is it because you're so brilliant? I can show you many, many people who are not so brilliant and have very, very successful businesses. Right? It's not because they're so smart, but it's a gift from Hashem. So for someone to feel so proud because look at me, look how successful I am, quote unquote, right? That doesn't make them successful. Hashem bestowed upon them this ability. Hashem bestowed upon them this success. And a person has to always remember that. Okay? That's what humility is. Humility is knowing your place and knowing exactly what is a gift and what is not.
When I sat down before, I was like, oh, it's Wednesday. And I'm like, what are we saying today? What are we talking about today? So I sat down to write some notes down. And as I sat down, the first thing that I did, I'm going to just flip it and do it on a new page. But this is what I do every single time I write anything, is the first time I write on any paper in the corner. I don't know if you can see. I always put, it's hard to see, a bet asamach and a daled, which stands for b'siyata dishmaya, with the help of Hashem. So as I'm sitting down to write, like, what am I going to talk about with humility? The first thing on my blank page, I just wrote that, and I'm like thinking, what can I say? And then it dawned on me that actually that is something that's a good way for us to train ourselves. I write this on everything. I think I put it on like checks. I'm sure like a lot of like places like get like notes, like legal documents. I'm like always writing like this bet samach daled b'siyata dishmaya, with the help of God, in the corner of every paper that I write, always. And it's something that a lot of people do. And it's just, for a second, it's just, you take that second to realize whatever it is that you're doing, whatever it is you're preparing. You're taking notes in school, you're preparing a class, you're planning a business proposal, whatever it is that you're writing down, when you take a second to realize that whatever you're doing is all with the help of God, so that puts things into perspective, that hopefully God gave us all so many gifts and so many capabilities and so many abilities to do things, but if we realize where it comes from, that puts us in our place. Right? I think humility, when we're talking about humility, it's know your place, right? Like, if you could put it down to like one line, that's what I would think. And you're not above this, and you're not below this, and you're not better than everyone else, and you're not less than everyone else. You have your unique set of skills, your unique set of gifts, your unique set of talent and limitations, and everything that you do or don't have is for your unique purpose. And we have to realize what we have and appreciate that, and live within that. Live in your place where you're supposed to be. It's a beautiful place to be.
I'm actually in the middle of reading a book, a very, very incredible book on management, leadership, great companies, and it's called Good to Great by Jim Collins. Really a fantastic book. And he talks about level 5. He talks about different level of leadership, and the highest is level 5 leadership. And what he says about level 5 leadership, it's people who are at the head of their companies, the head of their careers, right? But they allow other people to shine. And it's such an important quality. They allow other people. They don't have to take credit for everything. They don't have to, not everything has to be their idea. They let other people succeed. They let other people shine. And I think that this is such an important element of humility that's required for any success in life. What is someone who's arrogant? Someone who's arrogant is someone who sucks out the air from the room. Everything's about them. The conversation is always about them. You accomplished? Let me tell you, I accomplished more than you. You think your house is great? Let me tell you how my house is greater. You drive a nice car? My car is nicer. You went on a nice vacation? My vacation's nicer, right? It's people who are constantly bloviating, people who are constantly, showing off, sucking out the air from the room. Someone who's humble lets everybody have their space. Everyone can shine. And it's not going to diminish my greatness by other people shining. Humility is allowing everyone to have their place. It doesn't threaten me that someone else is successful. It doesn't threaten me that my competition does well. You understand? Because when we're living in a world where we recognize that everything is from Hashem, so Hashem will give me my success, regardless of what my competition does, regardless what other people succeed. My success is mine, right? And that's exactly what I'm supposed to have, right?
Sure. Fits right into our talk here. What does your shirt say? Talk to my agent.
Right. So someone who's arrogant and shows off constantly is always, people don't like being in the area around someone who's very arrogant, because nobody feels good around them. It's only them showing off about themselves. But someone who's humble, everybody loves someone who's humble, because they're willing to lavish praise on others. They're willing to share good words with others. You know what? You're so great. You're so incredible. Everyone is great. You can't grow if you don't have humility. As a people who desire to grow, it's very, very difficult to grow without humility as a human being. Okay? And we see this incredible virtue is an obligation in the Torah. You know, the Torah is always, the holiday of Shavuot celebrates the giving of the Torah. The day the Jewish people receive the Torah. It always falls out it always falls out right after the reading of the portion of Bamidbar, the first portion in the book of Numbers. Why? Now, I say because in order to attain the Torah, a person needs to be humble like a desert. Allow other people to stand on you. Allow other people to, right? We need to be humble like a desert. We also know that the Torah was given on Mount Sinai. Why was it given on Mount Sinai? Because it was the humblest of the mountains. God could have chosen Mount Everest, right? A far greater mountain. No, I want a humble mountain. Because humility is the trait of the Jewish people. In order to attain that connection with Hashem, in order to attain greatness, we need to have humility.
The Torah was given by Moshe.
Right, and the Torah, exactly. And the Torah says about Moshe, right? Moshe, the author, not the author. Hashem is the author, Moshe is the transcriber, right? Moshe writes the Torah word for word. And what does it say in that Torah? That who's the most humble of all men? Moses, right? That's not a very humble thing to write about yourself. And we don't see Moshe contradicting God or saying, so God, maybe we change that a little bit because it's a little uncomfortable for me to write, right, that I'm humble. No. Humble means you know your place. Humble means you know your place. Moshe was the closest person to the Almighty. He knew how small he was. That's why he was the most humble. Relative to the Almighty, right? I mean, we're microscopic, if anything, right? Compared to the abilities of God. And yesterday we had the first time we left Houston since the beginning of COVID, and we went to Surfside. We went for a few hours. It was so nice with the kids to go out it was really great. We found a nice quiet area, and if you look at the waves of the ocean, it is so powerful. It is so awesome. It is amazing, right? And we think, wow, we're so strong. Look at us. We're nothing compared. That one wave knocks us right over. It's amazing, right? We put that into understanding. The closer you are to the Almighty, the more we recognize how delicate we are. We realize how I don't want to say small because we're great. We're able to accomplish unbelievable things, but we realize how small we are relative to Hashem. So Moshe, who was the closest to God, was able to recognize how small he was, how humble he needed to be, because everything we have is from Hashem. I'm going to show off about what? I know how great God is. I see him up close, right? I know how small I am relative to God.
When people say someone's humble, like you were saying, they think like someone doesn't mean you're like this pathetic doormat. That's not what someone humble is. Someone humble can have just again like knowing their place and being humble. So even though it says like he was the most humble man, but how could someone like that, it says he like smote the Egyptians, right? Or he like stood up to Paro, who was like basically the world leader at the time, right? He's a strong, powerful man, and he just kept standing up to him and yelling at him, "Let my people go." How does he have that the nerve the chutzpah to say that? So it's not a contradiction to be humble and to be strong and have a cause, right? If anything, having proper humility and knowing our place, and again, like we keep saying, is knowing where our gifts come from, knowing that not having humility is not saying, "Oh, it's me. I'm so great. I have these great skills," right? You're taking yourself out of the me, right? Like I'm so great. I'm this. So you're saying, look at I'm just a small part of something so much greater, so much bigger. So if you're able to take yourself out of that, and it's not about me, what I'm doing, you're part of something bigger. Like you were saying, this the good to great, right? You're talking about like a leader, a true leader, right? So he's not about how much he's accomplished. Hopefully doesn't get up there and say how great he is and how amazing his success is. He's it's his company, his the product or whatever it is, taking himself out of the not making it all about him. And also someone like that, if you're talking about such a leader, he's not someone who thinks he's better than everyone else. That my parking spot, this is my office, this is my coffee, my fridge, my this, my that, I earned it, I whatever. And like, you all are peasants working for me. No, you walk in, you say hello, you say thank you to the guy cleaning the floors, and every person at every level in the business is important, and everyone has something to contribute. If he's able to be humble enough he might get the best ideas for his business, for his company, from the guys, cleaning the toilets, taking out the garbage. They might have valuable information. He shouldn't be above asking for help. I think some of the greatest things that we have like in our house are from our kids. Like ideas the kids say, like, no, you're just children. We're the adults. We know better. Listen to the kids. Listen to your employees. Listen to everybody. Listen to whoever it is. That you can gain so much from people. We all think we're just better or above everyone else.
The Mishnah actually says, from all my students I've learned, right? Is exactly to what you're saying, Zehava, that we can learn from everyone. Just because someone is the student, I'm the teacher, right? You're going to tell me, right? Yes, I've learned most from my students. That's because true humility comes from not thinking of ourselves so great that we can't have anyone else in our midst. I want to share with you my favorite story, and those of you who have come to my classes for several years, you've heard this story at least a dozen times. But this is my favorite story. Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, as most of you may have heard already previously, he was the leading rabbinic halachic decider, the halachic ruler, I would say, in the United States in the past, of the past 100 years. Okay, he passed away in 1986. And he wrote many, many books on halachic responsa, dealing with a lot of modern day questions, a lot of modern day medical advances, really amazing, amazing things that Rabbi Moshe Feinstein was just like unbelievable. I mean, the amount of Torah, just to give you an idea, he once called his nephew and said to his nephew, I get a mazel tov. So his nephew says, mazel tov, what's he says, I finished the whole Talmud for the fourth time. So he says, Uncle, about 15 years ago, you called me and told me that you finished the Talmud 101 times. So how can it be that this is your fourth time? He says, yeah, it's my fourth time finishing the entire Talmud 101 times. Okay? That you understand what we're talking about? You're talking about someone who knew every single word of Torah inside and out. And you look at his halachic response, he brings from Tractate Shabbat, from Tractate here, from Tractate there, from the Midrash here, from the Chumash there, he brings from everywhere, all the sources, unbelievable. So you can imagine he was quite a busy man. Friday afternoon, there's a phone call at his house. One of his students picked up the phone. He was busy, the rabbi was busy, so he picks up the phone, and this elderly woman says, may I please speak to Rabbi Feinstein? So he says, Rabbi Feinstein's not available right now. How can I help you? She says, I just want to know what time candle lighting is. That's an interesting question to call the rabbi for, right? So that's what the student wondered, right? So the student says, the candle lighting time is whatever, 6:35. But you don't need to, Rabbi Feinstein's a very busy man. You don't need to call Rabbi Feinstein to ask him for candle lighting time. You can look at any Jewish calendar and it'll tell you what time candle lighting is. So she says, sir, I have no idea what you're talking about. She says, I've been calling Rabbi Feinstein for the past 25 years, and he never said anything about Jewish calendars. Right? Imagine 25 years every Friday, with a smile on his face, he answered this woman's phone call and told her what time candlelighting is so lovingly. She never even knew there's such a concept. You know what I mean? She probably opened up the yellow pages, Said, Rabbi, I'll call the rabbi, ask him what time candlelighting is. You think she knew that Rabbi Feinstein was the leading Torah scholar in the country? Perhaps in the world? I had no idea. But he didn't make a difference, right? He didn't hold of himself so high that he doesn't have the time to deal with this woman's question, right? With love, with patience, with endearment, told her every single week, 25 years, what time candlelighting was. That's true humility, right? It's an unbelievable story. You know, they say, I heard this actually from, directly, I heard this from Senator Lieberman, Senator Joseph Lieberman. So if you remember, after the 2000 election, so there was the dimple chads, you remember in Florida, there was this whole dispute and it went to the courts, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. So the next morning he's sitting on his porch, the balcony, and he's reading the paper. So his wife comes over to him and says to him, my dear, don't worry. In this house, you'll always be vice president. So I think it's just an important lesson. We used to go to my grandfather when we were in yeshiva. We were working on certain traits. I think I mentioned this previously, and we're talking about the trait of arrogance, right? So we asked our grandfather, how do we work on this trait? So he says, this trait, don't worry about. Don't worry about it until you get married. When you get married, your wife will take care of your arrogance. So that's Senator Lieberman's wife putting him right in his place. But yeah, he'll always be vice president in their home.
I think you're talking about rabbis. I think that you see rabbis getting so much respect. Like I think I was talking about this last class, that how we respect and look up to these rabbis who are like so amazing, so great, right? We don't like, oh, some like rock star or like celebrity, like right? It's like, oh wow, there's that rabbi, right? And they get when they walk into a room, everybody stands up and everyone, sometimes they sing for them or whatever. And it's not like, fans, hey, like this, like they're not into themselves like that. It's not like they, even if they know and realize that kind of respect. And who was it? Like I think it was Rabbi Kamenetsky, the story you were saying recently, that how he was with another rabbi and they were walking into a big auditorium, and they were going to be speaking there, and then the other rabbi said, let's just go through the side door. I don't want to make a whole cause a whole commotion and a whole thing when we walk in. And was it Rabbi Kamenetsky?
I remember.
And he said, no, let's walk in. And he knew what was coming. And the Chafetz Chaim, the Chafetz Chaim. Okay, so he knew he was gonna get this, and it wasn't about him like feeding his ego, like let everyone stand and give me this honor because I need it for me. I want this honor. He said, our wives sacrificed so much for us to give to what we're doing and for us to be learning all this, and doing everything that we're doing. So let them feel good for a few minutes that like it's appreciated and valued. So it wasn't about them and their own ego. It was really just to, I don't know. It's like a slight. It's so obvious. Like those people who are like, oh, stop, stop, right? You see it. You see right through it. It's you see these people who are like so humble, like no, it's not for me, right? You really see through it. It comes across very obviously when someone gets up there, and makes a speech or whatever. Of course, we honor certain people. This whole idea of being honored by like a function or a dinner or whatever, like sometimes it rubs me the wrong way. Like you're getting up there to be honored, right? It's like a whole show. But I mean, there's something nice to it and there's something beautiful about it also. But you can see from different honorees, it comes across like some people who get up there and will go on they're like, okay, you have 5 minutes to speak, and they'll go on for a half hour talking about all their accomplishments. Nobody wants to hear it. Like, really. And they keep going on and on and on, and like, but I do it for the children. I do it for the sick kids. I do it for this. I do it, right? It's so obvious. And then you have someone who gets up there and like, really sincerely, thank you, it's so nice, and I really appreciate it, and they accept their word with dignity and with class, and you move on, and it's very nice. I think people take this whole, like, again, this whole humility thing. You can do things and even be recognized for doing certain things. What you do, you don't have to hide it. You don't have to be anonymous. You don't have to, like, hide your gifts that you're given. But there's a way to do it, and there's a class to it, and there's it's a God-given talent. That's exactly what it is. God gave you these talents. God gave you these gifts. He gave you these abilities. So it's not you, like, if you're an artist, so you shouldn't draw because you don't want to, like, be whatever, or like you're saying, I don't want to sing because, right? You have these singers who come across like, I'm God's gift to the planet. No, I have a nice voice. God gave me this nice voice. No reason I can't sing and make people happy, right? And just, like, use my talents and gifts for something good.
We see it in the creation of Adam. So Hashem uses humility where he says, Na'aseh Adam, let us create man. And obviously the question is, who's God talking to? Na'aseh, we will make. God is talking to all of the angels. Because God doesn't want to come across as being, I will make. No, let us make. Include those who are the underlings. Let the people who are, let them feel like they're part of this, right? So God demonstrates. I remember when my grandfather came, when I was in yeshiva, and my grandfather came to the celebration that we made after we finished the tractate of Talmud, when I was 15, 16 years old. So my grandfather came to be there to celebrate. So I remember my grandfather walked in, and it was a big room, big table lined up, and it was a whole festive occasion. And he sat down in the first spot, right next to the door. So everyone got up, and they were singing for him, and they wanted him to move to the front. And he's like, no. And why didn't he want to? Why didn't you want to sit in the front? You're a respected rabbi that everybody knows. Why didn't you want to go to the front? He didn't want to steal the show. He says, it's not my show. This is about the ones who finished the Talmud, right? Not the Talmud, but the tractates that they're learning. These are the students. It's their event, not my event. I'm here to honor my grandson, right? See, he didn't want to steal away the thunder from everybody else. He didn't want to take away, and it was true humility. Rabbi Hanan Wasserman, who was one of the great Eastern European rabbis pre-Holocaust, he actually was murdered in the Ninth Fort in Kovna, and his last class was given in my grandmother's house. He knew that the Germans were coming to gather them up, so he gave his last class, and his last class was dedicated to Kiddush Hashem, sanctifying God's name. There's no greater way for a person to live their life than to sanctify God's name, where they will be either embarrassed, humiliated for being a servant of Hashem, or they'll be murdered for being a servant of Hashem. You have Rabbi Akiva, you have the martyrs, right? The 10 martyrs who their life was taken just because they said, we're not going to give up the name of Hashem. Rabbi Hanan finished the class. The Germans knocked on the door, gathered him and all of his students, and they walked through the streets of the ghettos to the Ninth Fort where they were going to get shot, singing Ani Mamin, we believe. Okay, that's the way. So Rabbi Hanan Wasserman was a student of the Chafetz Chaim, and he was once visiting in the United States to raise money for his yeshiva, and he was standing in the back of a synagogue. He's stick a backseat. So the rabbi comes over to him and says, everybody knows who you are. Everybody knows how great you are. Isn't this a little bit false humility? Isn't this false humility? You're playing the game. Really, you should be in the front, but no, I'm going to stay in the back. And, oh, wow, he's so humble, right? It's false humility. So he said, no. He said, this is what my rabbi told me to do, the Chafetz Chaim. The Chafetz Chaim told me that not only I should sit in the back always, but I should keep on reminding myself that I'm not worthy of getting honor. Because honor honor is a disease. Right? We're not talking about dignity. We're talking about honor. When people honor, because when someone gets honor, they love it and they want more. Right? And that's why the Talmud says that someone who runs after honor, it runs away from them. Someone who runs away from honor, it runs after them. right? It has the exact opposite effect. So it's an amazing thing. The Talmud says that relates that there was a family that they sang so beautifully, and they would come to the temple and they would sing at the temple, and it was really magnificent. But they only sang at the temple. But when people ask them, we have a simcha, we have a celebration, can your family come sing? You guys sing so beautifully, it's like no, 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 and they wouldn't share anything. They were sort of arrogant about this amazing talent. And the Talmud relates that they died a miserable death because they didn't realize that it was a gift from Hashem. They thought, no, it's ours. And it's ours. We're keeping it for ourselves. Right? If they would have understood that it was a gift from Hashem, then they would have shared it. And there's a modern day I would say someone who's a great example of modern day humility, and that is one of my favorite pitchers ever. His name was Mariano Rivera from the New York Yankees. You can go look him up after class. Wikipedia. Yeah, the best pitcher. The absolute best pitcher in the history of baseball. And the year that he retired, so in all of the stadiums, they made a big event because he was known as the best pitcher, and nobody wanted to hit against him because he had a certain pitch that he would throw that would crack the bat in half. So they would use their old bats because they knew that if they swung and they hit the ball, right, even it would crack the bat. Unbelievable pitch, a magical pitch. So every time at the end of every game, they called him up, or before the game, tell us about your magic pitch, and they'd put the microphone, and he would say, unbelievably, he would say with such humility, he says, it's not me. God gave me this gift. He says, and they ask him, how do you throw it? And he would say, I'll show you how. But it's not the technique. It's the gift from God. And I think it's such an amazing attribute for a person to have when they're at the peak of their career, the peak of their success, making millions and millions of dollars a year. For every pitch he threw, he's making $1 million. It's like unbelievable, right? A legend. But notwithstanding that legend, he always remembered where it comes from. And that's our responsibility. Our responsibility is not to hide our skills and talents. Our responsibility is to always remember where it's from. Right? It's like in this great, amazing song that we sing every Friday night. It's Eshet Chayil, right? The woman of valor. And you read the words there. It's Sheker Hachein Vehevel Hayofi. Charm, you either have it or you don't. You can't go to school to pick up charm. You can't go to school to pick up beauty. You either have it or you don't. Thank God my wife has both of them, right? But what does King Solomon tell us? What does King Solomon tell us? He says, Sheker Hachein Vehevel Hayofi. Praising charm and praising beauty is vain, right? It's false, right? You know why it is? Because a person didn't do anything to attain it. You either have it or you don't. It's a gift from Hashem. So what are you praising the person? Praise Hashem. But when a person works on themselves to become a better person, that's their own doing. That's their own hard work. And that, Isha Yirat Hashem Hite Talal, that is praiseworthy. When a person works on themselves, a person works to become a better person, to overcome anger, to overcome arrogance, to overcome any negative trait, to really become a better person, that is your own doing, and that is praiseworthy. So with our children, it should be the same. If we have a child, I have a sibling, one of my siblings had a terrible temper. I mean, he'd throw temper tantrums, he'd throw things, it's like he would go crazy. And my parents worked with him. They worked with him many, many, many years, working on his anger, overcoming that anger. Today, you'd meet him, you'd never know he ever got angry in his life. To completely transform himself. Now, it doesn't mean he doesn't have those tendencies. He does, but he has the tools as well to overcome those tendencies. That's hard work. That is praiseworthy. But someone who's just born calm, never got angry, so what are you going to praise them? They didn't work hard to accomplish that. It's a gift that was given to them. Okay? So I think it's a very important idea to define what it is. Humility does not mean that, no, I'm nothing, I'm nothing, I'm nothing. No, it's to know what you are, but remember that it's a gift from Hashem. Right? Right? Okay, so humility is required if you believe in God. If you want to pray, anybody who ever stood to pray in front of Hashem is required to have humility. Because if you're not humble enough to recognize that everything is from Hashem, then what are you talking to? Right? What's there to talk? What's there to ask Hashem? The idea is that when we stand in front of God, we're recognizing, you know what, Hashem, I'm praying to you, right? It's because I realize that there are things that I'm limited with. Those limitations are our humility. And to remember those. And to say, Hashem, you know what? You're the one who gives wisdom to mankind. You're the one who gives people the ability to use our intelligence, to use our minds, right? Please bestow upon me intelligence. Bestow upon me good health. Bestow, right? We're asking Hashem, bestow upon me a good livelihood, right? We're realizing, we're recognizing that we're limited. And because we are limited, we need Hashem's help. Right? It's such a fundamental principle.
I'm just thinking, you're just talking about davening, so I'm thinking about a shul. The way a shul set up, so the rabbi's in the front, right? You give him like that honor, and then you have like the respectable other people, and also we respect, like we call up when they give aliyahs, there's like the kohen, right? You honor the kohen and you honor the lead. It's not an honor based on how much money they make or they're this or they're that, right? We have like status. Even the kohen, even though he's given a certain honor and given things first or this, right? It's not about him because he's great. It's what he represents. That he's representing the priesthood, right, or whatever. Like we don't have the same level today. A kohen doesn't serve the same purpose that they did in the time of the temple. But they're still given a certain honor. But a kohen doesn't walk around with this it's not like a status symbol. It's about who they are and what they represent. Also a rabbi, also someone who's, a big Talmud Chacham, a sage, or right. We don't give honor to those who just because of money and power and status. I think when we're saying about this whole honor thing, that honor really. You think of honor, like today, kids walk around like there's very little humility in the world anymore. There's no shame. There's no people walk around with just if everything's coming to them. Everything's just no respect for. I mean, you see what's going on in some places today. I don't want to get into politics or whatever. Like the way kids are treating public property or this or that or whatever the cause, there's still no excuse for the behavior that's going on in some places now, right? And kids there's just no shame, there's no humility, there's nothing. But on the other hand, you also at the same generation where there's so little humility, there's also such a high rate of depression, of low self-esteem, of and I think it's very interesting. I don't know, I was just thinking about this before. You think of humble, someone oh, whatever. But really, what we're learning here is humility is not the opposite of having a proper self-esteem. The opposite is true, maybe. Someone who has proper humility, who teaches themselves and recognizes, I'm a small little nothing, right? And they recognize that they're a small piece of something so much bigger, something so much greater, right? That actually gives them self-confidence. That gives them purpose. That gives them something more. Because if you feel like I'm so humble, my purpose here is just to serve God and to do His will and to do what He wants for me, right? So I have this mission, right? So it's bigger than me. It's not about me. So I'd be embarrassed to, let's say, stand up to someone more powerful, stronger, this, that. than me if it was me. But if I know what I'm standing up for is to do what's right and for God and whatever. So you have this like kind of like like what we were saying earlier with Moses, right? How did he stand up to Paro? It wasn't because he was like, I demand that I want a nice car, whatever. It wasn't for him. It was something he was standing up for, something for the community, for the Jewish people. So he had that strength. If we feel we're part of something so much bigger, something so much greater, and we recognize that humility, that gives us the self-confidence to act in a certain way, to go for the truth, to live a life of purpose, to live a life of truth. It doesn't matter what other people say. It doesn't matter what other people think, because you know you're doing what's right. So that helps your, self-confidence. Today's youth they don't have a mission. There's no purpose. It's a life without meaning, unfortunately. So if we live life without meaning, then you could feel like everything's coming to you. You're just chasing after money and honor and this and whatever it is. But at the end of the day, there's no meaning and there's no purpose. You feel so like that can contribute to society with a very high rate of depression, of low self-esteem, of low, you're not living for anything bigger. No, does that make sense? 100%. I don't know. I just think that
it's like you have over here. Humility is the opposite of weakness, right? Humility is the opposite of weakness. It's such a powerful thing. Humility generates truth and objectivity.
You guys asked for Wednesdays with Wolbes.
It's all the Wolbes.
Get a few more than
humility is freedom, right? Your personality expresses itself in an organic, internally generated, and more real way, right? I would say, and it's a great phrase I heard from Rabbi Weinberg. He says, humility is pleasure, arrogance is pain, right? Arrogance comes from a point of pain where someone something's not successful, something's not going right, so they need to, that show-offness of arrogance is coming from a point of pain, not a point of pleasure, right? Humility comes from a point of pleasure. Humility enables us to embrace others. We're able to open up to other people. We're able to welcome other people into our lives, into our world, right? Because it's not only about me, right? Arrogance, I think I mentioned this previously, the desire of someone who's arrogant is to take God off his throne and to sit in God's place. That's what my grandfather would say. We think, that's a little stretch, right? It's a little bit pushing it. No, it's not pushing it at all. That's actually the ultimate desire of an arrogant person. What's a humble person? Someone who has humility recognizes, everything is from Hashem. Hashem gave me something, I'll be happy with it because this is what he decided I should have. Right?
We talk about Bambi, that story with Dovey.
That's right, it's an amazing story.
I want to share.
What? So Zehava was in labor with our first child, with our Dovey. This is now almost 18 years ago. And Zehava looks like she's 18, right? How's that possible, right? But it's 18 years ago, and it really was. It was an amazing scene. So my great aunt is Bambi. Now, those of you who don't know, Bambi is Rachel Shalkovsky is her real name, and her maiden name was Bamberger. So people would call her Bambi, and she's a legend. She was the head midwife in Shaare Zedek Hospital in Jerusalem for about 50 years. And she delivered close to 40,000 babies, maybe even more than 40,000 babies. Unbelievable, right? Sadly, she never had any of her own children. And she delivered me, and she delivered my son Dovi, and she delivered many tens of thousands in between. So when we were in the labor and delivery room, and as many of you know, most hospitals have a school attached to the hospital. Now she was already not working full time. She would come in for family. She'd come in and do the labor and delivery. So we called her when Zehava went into labor, and she came to be there and to be the midwife. So one of the students was on call. Now this student has no idea who she's working with. She has absolutely no idea that this is the legend Bambi. She's never seen her, and she was sort of like we were shocked because this little young student is in a way lecturing Bambi, right, on different things or techniques, or she Bambi probably delivered this little nurse, right? And but the way in which Bambi stood there and accepted with humility, with love, was unbelievable. I remember we were looking at each other like, this is an unbelievable person. That she's just standing there and accepting and listening every word, even though she probably knows this, she probably wrote the book on this, right? But notwithstanding that, realizing that she also needs a place, right? This little nurse, this student also needs a place, right? She could have just said, thank you very much. I know what I'm doing. You can go take a hike, right? No, 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 no. Just standing there with love, with patience, with kindness, with humility, and listening to every word this young nurse said to her.
I think when she was doing that, first of all, it was so amazing to watch. But also, there probably wasn't anything that this nurse was going to tell her that she didn't know. Probably. But two things. First of all, just to give that, not to embarrass her, not to, just to be humble, and she didn't have to, I know better than you. I have so much more experience. I'm so much better, And also, maybe she will learn something from her. Even though this nurse is 5 minutes out of school or still in school, maybe there's a new technique. Maybe there's something, a little something that she learned that she could share, that she could teach her. And her openness to hearing that was just really, it really was amazing. I think people are so, even, let's say like you're in school or you're in a lecture or you're somewhere and you have a question, someone says something that doesn't make sense. Everyone's embarrassed or everyone's shy or scared or nervous, right, to ask a question, right? They say like, no questions are, there's no bad questions. It's not true. There's a lot of bad, we've heard many bad questions. No, but most questions are not bad. It's good to ask questions, right? And people are like, yeah, but if I ask, then it shows I'm weak or I'm stupid or I don't know or whatever. So I can't ask, right? When someone asks a rabbi, a teacher, or someone a question that's, it's not stupid to ask. It's a good thing to ask. You want to learn. You want to, right? By not asking, you're stubborn, you're arrogant, or it's like a lack of. It's that you think you're being like humble or like can't ask. No, ask, right? You want to ask, and I think other people sometimes like, the first person who says something and asks a question, the people around them are like, I'm glad someone asked because like I totally didn't get it, but I didn't want to be the person to ask because like it's so embarrassing. So you think like for me to ask it would be embarrassing, but like oh she's so brave, she asked that question, right? It's not embarrassing to ask. You're not weak. You're not less of a person because you didn't know. You want to learn. You want to understand, and that's on the a student side. From the teacher side is never to make a student feel like that's such a that's a ridiculous question. Let's move on. And usually, if a teacher says that, they don't know the answer.
Yeah, a humble person, a humble person is one who knows his place and doesn't think of himself greater than they really are. Right? Know your place. Don't think of yourself more than you are. And if a person believes, there's an interesting thing. If a person believes that they are greater than another person, but they don't verbalize it. So imagine Bambi's there, and she knows that she knows more than this nurse. It's obvious, but she doesn't say a word. Right? They're still considered humble, even though inside they know they're greater. Right? And as we mentioned in the third way, you remember that speech confirms the thought. Right? So if they don't speak it out, right? It's fine. They maintain that humility. They maintain that status. So humility deepens your relationship with God. Right? When our goal is to deepen our relationship with Hashem, right? Humility is the tool. Humility deepens it because we realize, what? We need Hashem for everything. We can't accomplish anything. We can't attain any goal, any mission, any accomplishment without the help of Hashem. Until we know what we are willing to die for, we mentioned this, we haven't begun living yet, right? And that's a very humbling thing to think about. 1 second, could it be that I've been making a mistake? Could it be that I've gone the wrong way all this time, right? That's the idea is to get us into a frame of mind of who we really are and what we're really capable of. So freedom, right? So freedom is awareness, independence, and satisfaction. Humility frees us from having to live up to anyone's expectations but our own. Okay? That's the summary of humility, is it frees us from having to live up to anyone else's expectations, but only our own expectations. Right? We don't have to live for other people. Right? Live because you need to accomplish for yourself. God gave you, God believes in you. He invested so much in us, right? Let's maximize it. Let's maximize.
We don't try to be people pleasers. Like, I think we have to stop being people pleasers, trying to do what's right, what other people think is the right thing, or what's socially acceptable, what's socially, if we have this humility to realize what the real deal is, know our place and where we're at, then we can please be a God pleaser, be our self pleaser, not about making sure everyone else around you, likes what you're saying.
All right, everybody. Okay. Thank you so much. It is such a wonderful privilege for me. I love this.
Mm-hmm.
I hope Zehava loves it as much as I do. I hope all of you love it as much as we do. And it really is a humbling experience to be here before you and to learn together and to grow, hopefully, together. And God willing, next week we have another amazing trait that our sages gifted us with that we can hopefully work on next week. So I'm looking forward to that. And have an amazing week. We're going to go off of Facebook now, and you're welcome to leave your comments there. You can like and share these videos if you'd be so kind to. Thank you. And looking forward to seeing everyone next week. For those of you on Zoom,